So, welcome to today's deep dive. Let me ask you something. You know that brilliant coworker you might have?
Oh, yeah. I think we all know exactly the type of person you're talking about.
Right. The one who just totally dominates every single internal prep meeting. I mean, they have all the quarterly data memorized. They build these flawless, mathematically perfect slide decks.
And they basically anticipate every single question the boss could possibly ask.
Exactly. But then you put them in the actual boardroom for the final client pitch. The stakes go up, the safety net disappears, and they just completely freeze.
Oh, it's brutal to watch. The pressure just gets to them.
Yeah, the physiological stress kicks in, their adrenaline spikes, and suddenly, all that meticulous preparation just vaporizes. It's like they forget their own name.
Well, we've all seen that happen. I
Right.
mean, there's this massive psychological chasm between knowing the material in a controlled environment and then actually executing when the outcome has, permanent consequences.
Right. The brain processes those two situations entirely differently.
Absolutely.
And that dynamic, that is the exact lens we're using today. We're looking at the source text, AFA Season 8 recap, Mount Cristo reaches the summit. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the literal anatomy of a championship.
Which is fascinating because we're looking at how a team actually breaks through.
Exactly. We are unpacking the mechanisms of how a perennially dominant team finally overcomes its own postseason psychological blocks. And we'll look at the mechanical reasons why statistical, on-paper dominance often just shatters when the real pressure hits.
Right, the difference between theory and practice.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this. Heading into Season 8 of the Aquatoga Football Association, Mount Cristo was that brilliant, freezing coworker.
Oh, 100%. They were the undisputed boogeymen of the regular season. I mean,
But
for 3 consecutive years, Mount Cristo finished first.
3 years in a row, that's no small feat.
It's not. They possessed the deepest, most talented roster in Aquatoga. You look at their defense, and it's anchored by these aging but, legendary stalwarts, Ray Lewis Jr. and Terrell Suggs Jr.
Absolute legends.
Right, so they had all the tools to build a dynasty. Yet the narrative surrounding them wasn't about dominance. It was about failure.
Because the playoffs.
Exactly. They had lost the previous 2 AFA championship games in just heartbreaking fashion.
Yeah, they were wearing that choker label. And entering Season 8, I mean, you could hear the clock ticking on these guys.
Oh, absolutely. The window is closing.
Right, their stars are aging, maybe losing a half step in coverage or, explosion off the edge. The text explicitly frames this as their last great opportunity.
Which is a heavy burden to carry into a season.
Just imagine the weight of that for you as a player. You are carrying the baggage of 2 devastating collapses, knowing your physical window is just slamming shut.
And that psychological burden, it alters how a team operates.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire narrative of Season 8 is about this tension between a repeatable regular season system and the pure chaos of postseason execution.
It's such a wild contrast.
It really is. To really understand what Mount Cristo accomplished by the end of this season, we first have to look at the bizarre landscape of the league they were navigating. I mean, the regular season in Season 8 was essentially a graveyard of statistical illusions.
It really forces you to question what a win-loss record actually represents, doesn't it?
Oh, entirely.
Take the defending champions, for example, the Crater Lakes Comets. I mean, on paper, they built the ultimate football machine.
Truly flawless on paper.
Yeah, they finished with a 7-3 overall record. They had a league-best plus 68-point differential, allowed only 101 points all year. And their pass rush, they generated 30 sacks.
I mean, that is the profile of a juggernaut.
Yeah.
And the mechanism behind that dominance was incredibly simple, but just ruthlessly effective.
Right, they had LeBrandon Tofield.
Exactly. Their running back, Tofield, won the rushing title with 741 yards. Playing against Crater Lakes in the regular season was it was like playing against the house in a casino.
You're just slowly losing.
Yeah, they didn't need to do anything flashy. They used Tofield to grind down the clock, systematically stringing together these 4-yard runs.
Which is just agonizing for the other team.
It is. That keeps the opposing offense freezing on the sidelines. And it ensures their own ferocious defense is completely rested when they finally take the field. It's essentially a mathematical certainty that over 9 games, that physical advantage will bankrupt an opponent.
But the math stops making sense the further down the standings you go. Look at 2 teams that both finished 4-5, Centralia and Napawile.
Right, identical records.
Exactly. A casual fan looks at those identical records and assumes, okay, they are identical below average teams. But Centralia had a minus 73-point differential.
Which is awful.
It's terrible. They were either winning absolute corn flip games at the buzzer, or they were just getting systematically dismantled. I mean, Port Boyerton crushed them 48-10.
Wow. Yeah, Centralia was the ultimate proof that not all 45 records are created equal. They lacked a cohesive identity. Meanwhile, you've got Napawile, who also finishes 4-5, but they possess a plus 15-point differential.
Which tells a completely different story.
Right. They started the season in a massive 0-3 hole, but mechanically, they were sound. They were losing tight games early, but their underlying systems were actually working.
And it paid off eventually.
It did. By the end of the year, they had evolved into a legitimate threat, capping it off by beating a very strong Port Boyerton team 31-14.
And then there's Lukoya. I mean, they were projected to finish third. They come out early and actually pull off a shocking 23-7 upset over those defending champion Crater Lakes Comets.
Huge upset.
Huge. But then they immediately suffer the sharpest decline in AFA history, losing 5 straight to finish dead last at 3-6. I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If Lukoya can obliterate the statistically perfect defending champs but finish in last place, and Centralia can match the record of a vastly superior Napawile team, why do we even care about regular season metrics? Aren't we just putting way too much faith in a sample size that is clearly lying to us?
Well, I wouldn't say the data is lying. It's just measuring something different than what fans think it's measuring.
Okay, how so?
Regular season stats evaluate the durability of a blueprint. Crater Lakes had a durable blueprint. Toefield runs the ball, the clock bleeds out, the defense tackles. That is highly repeatable.
Okay, that makes sense.
What happened with Lukoya was a spike in variance. In a single game, a lesser team can guess the snap count perfectly. A ball can bounce off a helmet into a receiver's hands, and that variance can completely derail a superior blueprint.
Right, just random luck, basically.
Exactly. But Lukoya didn't have a repeatable system of their own, which is why that variance normalized over the next 5 weeks, and they finished 3-6.
Ah, I see. That friction between a repeatable system and pure variance, that's actually the perfect bridge to talk about Port Boyerton. If any franchise embodied the chaos of variance in Season 8, it was the Bombers.
Oh, without a doubt.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Port Boyerton essentially stumbled backward through the playoff doors.
They were the coldest qualifying team in the league. They started the season playing fundamentally sound football, going 5-1. Then, the wheels started to come off.
Yeah, they lost 3 straight games.
Right, finishing 5-4. And they were heavily reliant on a defense that had to constantly bail out an underperforming offense.
And the irony is, their offense was supposed to be the story of the league. I mean, they signed wide receiver Aaron Moorhead specifically to supercharge their star quarterback, Bruce London.
And London had major NFL interest.
Exactly. But he chose to stay in Aquatova for this massive $244,000 contract. He was going for his 3rd straight passing title. But mechanically, the offense just stalled out.
It really did.
London threw for 1,684 yards, but he also threw 6 interceptions and finished 6th in the league. He just wasn't the offensive engine they paid for.
The contrast between Bruce London and the rest of the league's quarterbacks highlights a massive flaw in how we evaluate individual talent. Take Olaport's quarterback, Philip Rivers. Rivers threw for a staggering league-leading 2,006 yards and 12 touchdowns. He took home the Offensive MVP award. He executed his individual role flawlessly.
And his team was terrible.
Right. Olaport went 3-6 and completely missed the playoffs.
It's the ultimate paradox. I mean, Philip Rivers is the kid who does every single homework assignment, highlights his notes in 5 different colors, understands the theory perfectly,
and then fails the class because his group project partners just didn't show up.
Yes. Exactly. While Port Boyerton is the kid who skips the readings, bombs the last 3 quizzes, but somehow figures out how to ace the final exam.
What's fascinating here is how a team can functionally bypass a failing offense if they have a localized force of nature on the other side of the ball.
You mean their defense?
Specifically, their middle linebacker, Ed Hartwell. Port Boyerton survived because of him. He won league MVP and defensive MVP, tying Terrell Suggs with 78 tackles.
Which is insane production.
It is. But a tackle stat doesn't really explain Hartwell's real value. Hartwell altered the geometry of the field. By blowing up running plays in the backfield and forcing hurried throws, he consistently gave Bruce London short fields to work with.
So they didn't even need a great offense.
Right. Port Boyerton didn't need a $244,000 arm. They just needed London to not turn the ball over while Hartwell dismantled the opponent's strategy.
which sets the perfect stage for the playoffs, where the margin for error shrinks to absolute zero. The regular season rewards the team that can grind out a mathematical advantage over 9 weeks. But the playoffs, they punish the team that blinks first.
Oh, severely.
The semifinal between Crater Lakes and Port Boyerton is the ultimate case study in this, I think.
It was a violent collision between consistency and disruption.
Look at the underlying metrics of that game. Crater Lakes did exactly what their blueprint demanded. They completely dominated the yardage battle, outgaining Port Boyerton 413 to 289.
A massive difference.
And their quarterback, Michael Cook, he was dealing. He threw for 312 yards. By every conventional measure of moving the football, Crater Lakes was the superior team on that field.
But Cook threw 2 interceptions.
Yes. Crater Lakes committed 3 turnovers in total, and Port Boyerton, 0.
Turnovers in a playoff game aren't just lost possessions. They are sudden, catastrophic emotional shocks.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, think about it. Crater Lake spent 15 plays methodically driving down the field, burning energy and clock, only to have a single interception erase all that labor. Meanwhile, Port Boyerton only managed to penetrate the red zone twice in the entire game.
Just twice.
Yeah, but because they didn't turn the ball over, they converted both of those rare opportunities into points and walked away with a 27-20 victory.
It's just wild. And in the other semifinal, you have Mount Cristo facing Granite Top. Granite Top is this gritty, overachieving 6'4 squad led by a kicker, Larry Van Diver, who tied a league record with 22 field goals during the season.
A kicker carrying a team, you love to see it.
Always. And once again, the statistical giant gets outplayed in the trenches. Granite Top outrushed Mount Cristo 132 yards to 56.
But Mount Cristo had finally evolved. I mean, in previous years, Mount Cristo would panic in this exact scenario.
They would totally fall apart.
Right. When their explosive offense, which averaged nearly 23 points a game in the regular season, got bogged down, they would historically start forcing deep, low-percentage throws to try and recapture momentum.
And that desperation led to the turnovers that cost them 2 previous championships.
Exactly. But not this time.
No, Granite Top's quarterback, Ricky Diaz, throws a critical interception. And what does Mount Cristo do? They embrace the grind. They commit 0 turnovers. They hold on to the football for over 12 minutes of possession.
So it was bleeding the clock.
Content to take the boring checkdowns and run out the clock, securing a brutally ugly 16-10 win. But I struggle with the framing of this, though.
Why is that?
Well, if we say regular season dominance doesn't matter because Crater Lakes lost to a vastly outgained Port Boyerton, aren't we just suffering from massive recency bias? I mean, over a large enough sample size, Crater Lake's strategy is undeniably better football.
On a spreadsheet, yes.
So why should one bad afternoon of sudden variance invalidate months of data? Is a single elimination tournament actually the worst way to determine a champion?
Well, it depends entirely on what you define as a champion. I mean, if you want to award a trophy for the most mathematically sound football theory, then yes, hand the trophy to Crater Lakes in Week 9.
Fair enough.
But a championship tournament isn't a math test. It's a stress test. It measures what we call championship DNA.
Championship DNA.
Right. It's the ability to function when the script burns to the ground. Crater Lakes had a great script, but they couldn't improvise when Port Boyerton punched them in the mouth and forced those turnovers.
And Mount Cristo could.
Exactly. Mount Cristo proved they had championship DNA against Granite Top because they realized their script wasn't working, and they successfully pivoted to a completely different style of survival football in real time.
That real-time adaptation leads us directly to the summit, the AFA championship game. Mount Cristo carrying the agonizing weight of their choker reputation, going up against the giant slayers, Port Boyerton.
The tension was incredible.
You just have to imagine standing in that locker room before kickoff. If Mount Cristo loses to a 5-4 team that barely scraped into the playoffs, the legacy of Ray Lewis Jr. and Terrell Suggs Jr. is permanently stained.
The pressure on Mount Cristo was suffocating. Port Boyerton was playing with house money. They had absolutely nothing to lose.
And yet, Mount Cristo delivered an absolute masterclass. The final result, Mount Cristo 27, Port Boyerton 0.
A total shutout.
The very first championship game shutout in the history of the franchise. They didn't just beat the Bombers, they completely dismantled them at a molecular level.
We have to talk about how they achieved that shutout because it wasn't just physical dominance. It was absolute tactical supremacy.
Okay, let's start with Bruce Lunder. The text describes his play as a nightmare performance. The $244,000 quarterback goes 6 for 62 yards, throws 2 interceptions, and finishes with a quarterback rating of
Yeah,
.4.
it's almost impossible.
Getting a .4 requires you to make the worst possible decision on almost every single dropback. Port Boyerton only managed 123 total yards and never even sniffed the red zone. How does an offense get paralyzed that thoroughly?
It comes down to disguise and baiting. Mount Christo's defense didn't just overpower London. They confused him pre-snap.
How so?
They would show a specific coverage shell, wait for London to commit his eyes to his primary receiver, and then seamlessly rotate into a completely different coverage post-snap. By the time London realized his read was wrong, the pocket was collapsing.
Wow.
And the architect of that confusion was Ray Lewis Jr.
Lewis was incredible. He's this aging linebacker who had arguably lost a step of sheer foot speed during the regular season. But in this game, he records 9 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and an interception.
He was everywhere.
He really was. He was operating like the central processing unit of the defense.
That is exactly what happens when veteran intelligence compensates for declining physical tools.
Yeah.
Lewis didn't need to be the fastest guy on the field because his diagnostic skills were flawless.
He knew what was coming before it happened.
Right. He whiz-reading Port Boyerton's offensive line splits and route combinations before the ball was even snapped. He was in the passing lanes before London even started his throwing motion. That 27-year shutout was a triumph of football IQ over pure athleticism.
And on the other side of the ball, Mount Christo's offense operated with clinical precision. Quarterback Charlie Elway goes 13 for 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions.
Very clean.
Very clean. He lost the passing title battle to London and Rivers during the regular season, but he played a flawless game when it mattered most. Travis Minor grinds out 99 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Rodney Walton, who actually won the regular season receiving title with 719 yards, repeatedly moves the chains. And Travis Taylor grabs a crucial touchdown.
They essentially weaponized efficiency. I mean, they only reached the red zone 4 times in the entire championship game.
But they scored on all 4 trips.
Precisely. They recognized that Port Boyerton's defense, led by Ed Hartwell, was designed to create chaos. So Mount Christo refused to engage in chaos.
They just played it smart.
They took the short gains, they protected the football with fanatical discipline, and they simply stepped back and allowed Bruce London and the Port Boyerton offense to implode.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this? Think about the narrative arc here. Mount Christo spent 3 years as the brilliant coworker who couldn't close the deal. But by walking into that stadium, absorbing all of that toxic pressure, and delivering a 27-0 shutout, they achieved something incredibly rare in sports. They altered their own history.
This raises an important question about how we construct legacies, actually. If Mount Christo had lost this game, the narrative would have solidified forever. They were a soft, regular season mirage.
Jokers forever.
Exactly. But because they won with such overwhelming tactical discipline, we retroactively view those previous 2 championship losses completely differently.
Oh, that's a great point.
Suddenly, they aren't failures. They are the necessary, agonizing crucibles that taught this roster how to win. The 27-0 victory validates the entire 3-year era.
It totally recontextualizes the pain. To synthesize all of this, the regular season illusions, the wild statistical anomalies, the brutal efficiency of the playoffs, we arrive at a fundamental truth about high performance.
Which is?
True dominance isn't about running up a plus 68-point differential when the stakes are low. It's not Phillip Rivers padding his stats to 2,000 yards on a failing team.
No, true dominance is the capacity for adaptation. It's the ability to abandon your preferred style of play when the environment demands something uglier.
Yeah.
And as Ray Lewis Jr. demonstrated, it's about utilizing accumulated wisdom to overcome physical decline precisely when the window of opportunity is about to slam shut permanently.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative thought for you to mull over. Ed Hartwell of Port Boyerton was awarded both the league MVP and the defensive MVP.
A massive achievement.
By every available regular season metric, he was the single most valuable asset in the sport of football. Yet in the defining game of his career, his defense surrendered 27 points, his offense scored absolutely nothing, and his team was systematically dismantled.
It's a huge paradox. If the undisputed most valuable player can be rendered utterly irrelevant when the stakes are at their absolute highest, It forces us to reconsider the entire concept of individual awards in a highly interdependent system.
It really does.
Does an MVP trophy actually signify value, or is it merely an attendance award for a regular season formula that shatters on contact with reality?
That is the kind of question that forces you to rethink every highlight reel you've ever watched. You can possess all the individual talent and perfect metrics in the world, but if the systems around you fail when the pressure spikes, the data means absolutely nothing. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the statistics. Always look for the underlying mechanisms beneath the box score, and we will catch you next time.